Hello my friends, welcome to a brand new Langford Lakes wildlife vlog, and this is going to be the first time I took my brand new 150 to 600mm the big long telephoto lens. I think it's about f5.3 to 6.5 depending on what millimeter range you're at, down to Langford Lakes. We saw a graded crested grebe, as you can see here, and I was mostly testing what the new range was. There isn't going to be as much BTS footage of me shooting as I would like in this video, so it's mostly going to be wildlife footage, and that's mainly just because of having a couple of card issues with the GoPro at the moment, so I'm just working out specifically what we do to fix that, how we fix that, etc. Doing some troubleshooting. But we got to see this beautiful robin that was sheltering from the rain, because when we actually got to the lakes the last time of going, it was really rainy, and I was like, yeah, didn't really feel great about shooting on the lens. In theory, the lens is, you know, weather resistant to a point, but didn't really. I had a shoot that was really important the following week. This is a heron in a tree. They're not meant to be in trees. I had a shoot the following week that, you know, I was kind of concerned about the camera, even though again it's weather sealed, so didn't run into any problems, so that's a win. But something to keep in mind when shooting in wet weather obviously is to just be careful with what you're shooting. Moving closer to the wildlife stuff though, something I try to do at the moment is to gather a mid and then tight of the animal, the sequence, the kind of moment that's happening, and this was taken from the kind of cafe lookout area across the other lake, and I think most of the wildlife on this morning were kind of sheltering from the rain, finding a spot in the tree somewhere. But the sun did come out later on. Haven't been back since the new hide had been open, but in plus news, we did manage to see a couple of vlogs ago, I was graced with being able to see some Canadian geese, very small Canadian geese. So this would be the next stage technically, just before the top hide. Then went up. My partner had seen a heron that was hunting on the top lake quite close to that hide, so it was great to see and get closer to him and get some footage of him around and hunting. I don't think I actually caught him capturing a fish. Like, I got him diving for it, but not necessarily actually capturing one in his beak. He also does this interesting behavior where he sort of stokes around the lower level water on the outside of the lake as well. As you can see here, oh no, he did actually catch a fish, hurrah. So I got a single normal speed version, but I think it was the slow motion clip that we didn't get. So when I do go back next week at the time of filming the voiceover, here's the slow motion version. I will be trying to get a slow motion version just so I've got some variation. And something else I also noticed as well, especially when it comes to birds in flight, it's always good to have them in slow motion where possible, but it's that balance I've found a lot, where I found myself switching quite a lot between normal speed footage to get, you know, for example, this lapwing walking around, because I want that in normal speed, but then also because it's wildlife, because it's not going to necessarily partake in the same way that you would want it to. There's a reason why they say don't work with children and animals. You want to just bounce between the two or commit to the specific shot. So if you think it's likely to take off, then specifically shoot it in slow motion so that you're planning to only use the end of that footage rather than the main bit. If you've got a bird on a perch, etc. This is me being semi-purist regarding filmmaking, but I always find it's easier and always gets nicer footage when using that 24 frames per second, or 30 if that is your preference. But at the time of recording, the lakes themselves had really come down in the actual level, so we got some new birds kind of coming back. Not 100% sure what they were. I believe one of them was a red scoper, something like that. You'll see them in a moment when we cut to the footage. Here we are. And there was another one that was very similar, but something which I think some people would sometimes miss specifically, or sometimes look at, is when you have, especially as we get into the autumn and obviously the winter, when it's more likely to be raining, in theory, do you not go to the lakes? Do you not go out? I personally think, especially if you're going to be in a hide like we were, like I was at the time of filming this video, it's something which I think you can get really unique footage, and I think you can get behaviors that you otherwise wouldn't. And keep in mind, a lot of the birds that are in this video, and a lot of the birds that you're going to see at the lakes quite a lot of them, especially around the actual lakes, from my understanding, they have waterproof feathers, so they're not going to be as bothered by the rain. But also, even if they were, they still have to hunt. So a kingfisher, for example, or any other similar bird in that regard, would need to hunt and still need to eat. So maybe they're going to be slightly less active than they would be in the sun, but they would actually need to go out and hunt. So they're still going to come out, they're still going to look for bugs, they're still going to look for their prey when it comes to the environments they're in, even if it is raining. And it also kind of will allow your footage to stand apart to an extent. It got really, really heavy, as you can see here, but I think it does add a dynamic that you otherwise wouldn't get, because it allows the subject in this case to really stand out from the background, because otherwise it would, to an extent, you could say that there's not much else going on in the frame, and you might say, well, that negative space, that cleaner frame would be helpful to make sure that, you know, you're not being distracted by the rain. But for me, I actually think it draws the eye back in to the subject in this case that we're looking at on the edge of this island. If you do notice a couple of the spots in the footage, this kind of blue spot, that is normally caused by some level of dust spike. It could be on the front element of your lens, or it could be specifically on the tele extender in my case, or the back end of the lens. So something that I'm really, really trying to work out specifically, and sometimes I can find it, sometimes I can't, is work out specifically, okay, well, where am I getting this reflection? Sometimes it's the sun reflecting on it as well. So these are things to check. But something, when you are tele extending and shooting at, f8, you are going to be more likely to see these imperfections on the lens. So it's something which I would always recommend you check before you go on a shoot like this, because if you are shooting, those fast shots, if you're mainly doing photography, it's less of a concern. But if you're doing video and you're looking to be quote unquote a purist, this was the bird we weren't 100% sure that where it was. So if you do know, do let me know in the comment section down below. But if you are looking to get pristine, perfect, quote unquote, whatever that means for you, footage, then do double check and make sure you clean your filters, clean your lenses, cleans your tele extender, etc., just to get rid of any little dust specks. But because of how zoomed in and how magnified you are, that the slightest dust speck is going to show up as a large potential blue circle, normally reflected from the sun, but it can also happen on a cloudy day as well, that we had here. So that's just my thoughts on that specifically. Moving on, we do end up heading and sort of seeing what other wildlife we can end up finding specifically. We hadn't around with these guys for a good bit. They were lovely to see. They ended up actually leaving, but I hadn't actually seen these they're red spout, red beaks, somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure on the actual species type, but I was really, really pleasantly surprised with actually seeing a pair of them. This was the first time we saw them when we actually were at the lakes. And the heron came back to continue some hunting. So we got some beautiful slow-mo of him walking around. And he actually went a little bit further into the lake than I initially planned. I think he wasn't really finding a lot of necessarily needing a lot of fish, and then he did leave, so he left. So again, I was deliberately filming in slow motion to get that fly off. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capture much more because he did disappear rather quickly. And then on the way back further down into the reserve, I got some more footage of these teenage Canadian geese that probably by the time I go back towards the start of next month, so we're going back next week at the time of recording this voiceover, they will most likely be very close, if not at adult size. But the job of this footage, the reason why it was key for me, was I wanted to tell that story, because obviously back in April we had some shots of mum goosing around and sort of sitting on the nest, doing some guarding behaviour as well, I believe, as well. Had a little bit of mating behaviour. This was some cormorants running around when we were having breakfast. And then that will lead into the footage which I showed you a couple of vlogs ago of the smaller ones that existed and we saw going onto the lake, and then obviously then these teenagers as well. So we've got that full story of motion. Then we pop back up to the top lake, and this was when the weather had started to get slightly better, and we did actually see a kingfisher pair And the lake, this top lake, has actually got a lot more active in the last couple of weeks from those who are local photographers who I've been speaking to whilst not be at the lake, so thank you for those who you are. And they did land on the same perch that I saw from like 3 or 4 vlogs ago. They have the females now been seen over there, and also a juvenile's been seen there as well. So it's been great to see sort of more in that respect going on, and sort of seeing that lake's going to get potentially a lot more active from a kingfisher point of view, because obviously the objective and the thing that I'm looking for the end of this summer film is that fishing sequence of kingfisher, so I'm getting closer to getting that. And then we looked at this egret, which is part of the heron family, doing very similar behaviour to what we saw the grey heron doing shortly a little bit ago when we first got up to the first lake. Just looking and hunting. They end up, I think, walking around until they see some fish, and then they'll sort of stop and then sort of wait and see, and then eventually they'll strike. Unfortunately, we did lose BTS, but we got this beautiful tight close-up of this lovely lapwing having a wash. Something I'm going to try and do a lot more when I one of the next things on the infinite list of upgrades to kit is a better tripod head, because as I'm shooting at now 1200mm on average, or about 2400mm actually, I end up finding that it becomes very hard, even on a fluid head, even on a pretty decent fluid head like the Manfrotto one I'm using. It can be quite difficult. So what I'm looking for is one with a counterbalance system within it. So I'm probably going to go to the Sackler Ace or the Sackler Flowtech system to allow me to really have an easier time operating the tripod, but also obviously the footage itself being more usable. So that's the plan there. We also found a small family of swans, which was great to see, and something which I was kind of looking for to be part of this film, because nothing screams spring and summer quite like some cygnets in the same way. This was what we were doing, we were basically just waiting around to see if the male was going to come back, but because of the rain we found that the kingfisher had basically hunted later, because he was seen up at the top lake around 10 o'clock, so probably meant that day at the time of filming it was more likely he was going to come back and hunt on this lake around 5, when he would normally come back about 2. And that is going to wrap up this video. So if you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more like it, this one was a little bit kind of Frankenstein together, but thank you ever so much for watching, thank you ever so much for consuming, and I'll see you very, very soon.